This tool degrades your photos, but in a good way. Let me explain. If you've watched my last video, you know how much I love the Dehancer film emulation for grading my videos. But another huge aspect I haven't really talked about in that video is the Lightroom and Photoshop plugin they offer. That basically takes all the features the video plugin has and puts it onto your photos, making them look like shot on an analog film camera. At least that's what Dehancer claims. So in today's video, I'll test out whether it can actually hold up with what they claim. I've set up a folder with 9 very different photos I found while deep diving through my own archive to see how the plugin performs in different scenarios and even how it holds up to actual analog film. Before we start, just like the last time, Dehancer did give me a free license to use. However, they have no effect on what I'm gonna say about it. Also, in case you want to try out the plugin for yourself, you can get 10% off by using the code MortyFilms at checkout. But now, let's dive in with test number 1. Golden hour. I thought as a start, we take the shots that already look good and then gradually test this plugin with more difficult tasks. So this UI you can see here actually works like its own little editing software, except that it's tied to Lightroom or Photoshop and doesn't work independently. As you can see, I've now decided to take things into my own hand and tweak the edit to my own liking. For this one, I'm going with the Cinestill 800T film stock and basically add all the effects. And that looks nice. It's not too much of an extreme edit, but that's also not the point. We're just trying to get a warm, organic look. Speaking of which, this next photo already looks pretty nice as well. So we just select Edit In, and then the Dehancer Lightroom plugin. Kodak Gold will look nice on this one. Tweak the settings. Here we can really make use of the film compression. And I really like how that turned out. Time for test number 2. Skin tones. Skin tones are one of the main reasons why I have loved the Dehancer plugin for video. So let's see how the photo plugin handles them. And upon selecting Kodak Gold again and making the shot a bit warmer as well as turning up the color density, these colors just look amazing. And we really start to get away from this digital Sony look. Also, I noticed that I look really angry for some reason while editing these photos. I don't exactly know why. Maybe I was a bit tired that day, or I'm trying to wrap my head around how this magic plugin works, or it's because I know that you're in the 90% that watch my videos but haven't subscribed yet. But yeah, not sure? Subscribe. Next up we have this handsome fella. And I didn't just choose this photo because there's this absolute stunning bloke in there, but also because this one wasn't shot on my Sony a6300, but my friend's Canon R5 and my Helios 442, which already gives this photo quite a vintage vibe. So yeah, my goal was to make this one quite authentic, and again, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So now let's test the limits of this plugin and see how it performs in test number 3, Underexposed. When you take your raw photos into this plugin, you might expect that they maintain all their raw data. At least that's what I initially thought. But well, these results tell me something different. And if you take a closer look, you'll see it actually makes a TIFF copy of your raw photo before it's imported into the Dehancer UI. So my workflow has been to tweak the exposure and the contrast in Lightroom to ensure no details are crushed or blown out. I then import the TIFF copy into Dehancer and put on the film emulation. And then when I'm done with that, I tweak the contrast again in Lightroom to make full use of the dynamic range available. Same thing goes for test number 4, Overexposed. As with the shadows, just look how much detail we can actually retrieve by doing these adjustments beforehand. Here's a side-by-side look with and without these adjustments. However, if the highlights are just hopelessly blown out, the blooming and halation effects will do a great job just smoothing out the highlight roll-off and just make the image look less digital and harsh. But now we come to pretty much the toughest test for this plugin. Test number 5, High Contrast. This is a pretty unforgiving shot of a turtle under the Tanzanian sun shining brightly off the shell and throwing some really harsh shadows. So I'll do my best at making this look a bit more analog. First, I do my adjustments in Lightroom and I notice that the highlights are in fact hopelessly blown out. However, the shadows reveal surprisingly much detail. So in Dehancer, I'm going with Cinestill 800T again and tweak the settings until I'm happy with the look. In this case, I found blooming to help me roll off the highlights more. So now that I feel like I am able to work with this plugin, here comes the grand finale. Test number 6, Actual Film Comparison. I love running around with this 50s Kodak camera I got stupidly cheap for just $5. Now, for the ultimate test, I found this photo that I took both with this camera as well as my Sony a6300. I know that I won't be able to create a 100% identical look, as just this old lens alone has very distinct characteristics compared to the super sharp Sigma Art 18-35 that I used for this shot. But I wanted to see how close we can get it. So I selected the same film stock I used to take this photo and played around with the settings. I then played around with the settings a bit more and even more. It actually took me quite a while to land in a ballpark that I was happy with. I noticed that the original analog picture doesn't have any halation to it at all, and I think it's because that specific artifact is only really dominant in motion picture. But correct me if I'm wrong. I did add some blooming, however, to compensate for the sharp lens, and it also took me quite some time to tweak the grain for a less crispy image. Once you look at these images side by side, I'm really happy with how well they actually match. Especially if we compare it to the unedited image, we can really see how Dehancer was able to completely take out this digital look. Conclusion. To be totally honest, I'm not surprised how well Dehancer performs for editing photos. After I edited these 9 photos, I made a selection and uploaded some of them alongside the actual analog photo to Instagram. I asked you whether you could find the real deal, and what did actually surprise me is that it really seemed more like a guessing game. So, if you've been wanting to get that analog look or just want some nice organic colors in your own photos, I highly recommend giving this plugin a try. And while I know it's not exactly on the cheap side, as mentioned before, you do get 10% off if you use my code MortyFilms at checkout. If you haven't watched my last video about Dehancer for video, now would be a good time to check that out. So, see you over there. Bye.